As of 2018, there are 1,414,162 people in jails or prisons in the United States, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics. The United States has the highest incarceration rates in the world. Australia, which is one of the largest countries in the world, has around 172,000 people incarcerated as of 2018, according to the Sentencing Project. This number is drastically different from what we are seeing in the United States. The mass incarceration rates in this country have reached an all-time high, and it's time we do something about it. Most of these people who are put into prisons are charged with small drug offenses and are met with minimum sentencing. Another statistic by the Sentencing Project has shown that prisons in the country are overcrowded and they do not help reform prisoners. A lot of money is going into these prisons when they could be going into other aspects of the system, like rehabilitation for the inmates and families. The system is failing these people over and over again, and it's been this way for years. Although I have not known anyone who has personally been affected by this issue, I have been doing research on this topic not only for this speech, but for other papers that I did in high school and beyond. The number of people incarcerated in this country has steadily been increasing each year since the 1970s, and there's still no end in sight. However, by implementing new policies that keep lower crimes out of jail, we can help fix the mass incarceration in this country. In this speech, I will be talking about the history of mass incarcerations and past policies that have not worked. I will also be talking about my proposed policy and how its implication will lessen the mass incarceration of people. There's a long history of discrimination in our justice system and how it affects incarceration rates today. However, I will be focusing on the problem as a whole and how it all started, the war on drugs. The war on drugs started in the 1970s by President Richard Nixon as a way to keep drugs off the streets. However, this is just a front to arrest people of color. During this time, and even today, there's a large discrimination gap between races, and the biggest piece of evidence that shows this is the difference in jail time of possession of crack and cocaine. Britica reports that mandatory minimum of possession of 5 grams of crack is 5 years. It would take up to 500 grams of cocaine to get the same minimum sentencing. Most crack users at this time were African Americans, which led to more people of color being incarcerated than white people. The war on drugs turned into the Say No to Drugs initiative started by First Lady Nancy Reagan. According to History.com, in 1980, the number of people incarcerated for drug possession was 50,000 people. 15 years later, in 1997, 400,000 people were incarcerated for drug possession. The number of people that were being incarcerated at this time grew exponentially. Although this speech is not on drug charges specifically, it plays a major role in the cause of mass incarceration. There are some current policies in the United States that have tried to decrease the number of people incarcerated. One of the major policies that were passed is the Reverse Mass Incarceration Act. The Criminal Justice Policy Foundation details that this act would give states money if they decrease the number of incarcerations and crimes. This act is the reverse of the crime bill. The crime bill gave money to states that built more prisons and ultimately encouraged mass incarceration. Although the Reverse Mass Incarceration Act is a start, this is not a long-term plan that will ultimately end mass incarceration in this country. Some states have also started lowering sentencing for lesser crimes, but not to the extent that the country needs. This leads to my proposed solution. Decriminalizing drugs would be a giant step in the right direction. A lot of people in the system are there because they faced drug possession charges. In this past election, Oregon took one step closer to ending mass incarceration. CBS News reports that Oregon is the first state to decriminalize the possession of hard drugs like cocaine and heroin. And more states took on this initiative, less people would be faced with incarceration. Other states are legalizing marijuana, which can also help to lower the amount of people facing jail time. Another measure that states and federal governments can take is lowering minimum sentencing on small offenses. The Criminal Justice Policy Foundation states that these mandatory minimum laws started in 1986 by the federal government to get the drugs off the streets. Studies have found that incarceration does not help people and ends up costing a lot of money that the states don't need to spend. Instead of putting people in prisons, we should invest in rehabilitation centers where they can learn to be better citizens in our society. Other countries have started similar programs and have seen growth in their society. Altogether, the number of people being incarcerated has steadily been increasing each year since the 1970s, and there's still no end in sight. There have been initiatives started to try and fix the problem. However, they are not as effective as they should be, and they are not long-term solutions. By implementing new policies that keep lower crimes out of jail and stopping minimum sentencing, we can help fix the mass incarceration in this country. I leave you with this. Go out and vote. It doesn't matter if you support this issue or not. Your voice matters, and you can make a difference in your local and federal government. Although the election just passed, you can still spread the word for future elections to make a difference. If you want to see change happen, you have to take the initiative and go after what you want. Thank you for your time.